Hey guys, so I'm about to call it a night. I am settled into my hotel. Got to get up early and take that road test tomorrow. I'm a little nervous. So the reason why y'all see me in the bathroom, I'm not staying in the bathroom. I'm about to go in the room, but I got to set my hair and it's kind of dark in the room. So I figured I'll start it off in here and then I'll call it a night. But I wanted to extend the video from last week when I was talking about relationships and how sometimes when people flip on you, whether you're the one flipping, doing the flipping, or your partner's doing the flipping, or both of y'all are doing the flipping out. I mentioned one of the reasons could be the compartmentalization of how people view other people. They compartmentalize people. But I wanted to go a little further into what I mean by that. Hopefully you'll understand, but I may have to do, several videos breaking it down because it's not as simple as explaining it like 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like you got to understand the history of psychological events that happen to the brain when the brain has trauma. So let's go into first the ego. The ego has to be stabilized in order to be properly functioning. And in order to properly stabilize the ego, it has to have what's called object relations. Object relations mean having relations with people. So the word object in psychology basically represents people. So when you hear that interchangeably, when you hear psychology, that's what it means. So in order to know if your ego is properly functioning, you have to first have object relations. The first people that you usually have object relations with are your parents when you're born, usually the mom. And I don't mean to blame the woman so much, but a lot of personality disorders stem from the mom. From the child, like when the child has a personality disorder, it's because of the mom, the relation that happened to the mom. So when the child, from the age of like 9 months to a year, and it can happen even before that, the child starts to understand that they're a different being from the mother. They separate themselves from the mother. That's called individuation. Hold on, let me take this off. I always forget to do a mic check. What is wrong with me? Oh, sorry. Hopefully y'all, this video is not going to be in vain. But I'm just trying to set my hair so that way tomorrow is not too hard to get it to do what it do. Because I was driving in that car for a long time. My legs hurt. I fell asleep. Poor circulation. So after I get off this video, I'm going to do some squats, a couple of jumping jacks, and maybe some push-ups to get the blood flowing before I head off to bed. I also have a heating pad and my foot brace. I'm going to show y'all my foot brace when I get in the room. The foot brace helps my flat feet. I only was able to squeeze one, so I left the other one home, so I have to take turns on my foot. Anyways, I'm rambling. When you're born, you develop a relation with your mama, right? Mostly your mama, because she's the one that's going to be probably doing the breastfeeding and holding you and giving you the baby bottle. All these things you probably don't remember as a kid, but let me tell you, when it's damage done, it leaves residual scars. Residual basically meaning like it's not going to go away. Something that's residual is like continuous, right? So even though the damage has been done when you was a kid, the residual scarring, it continues throughout your life. So things that you don't know is bothering you because of the trauma from your childhood, you're just replaying the feeling of it. So you don't know why you're getting upset. You don't know why you're going off. You don't know why you got anger issues. But then when you find out, okay, where did it all stem from? When you start to do that soul searching and that shadow work and your memories start to come back, you're able to put two and two together. And that's what happens when you get cognitive theory, cognitive behavioral therapy, or dialectical behavioral therapy. All these things will have you address these concerns. They'll have you tackle these concerns. So when you have object relations with your mama from young, if she's not a good parent, right? Let's say she's one of those parents, she leaves you in the crib all the time, you're always crying, you're always feeling like she doesn't care because she doesn't, she doesn't cater to your needs, your emotional well-being as well as your physical well-being, because those two are very important. It's called physiological needs and psychological needs. The parent has to be able to understand, if you're going to have a child, these needs of the child are very important to their well-being, especially late in life when they start to become an adult. But parents, they just have kids just to be having kids, and then all these damaged people are walking around getting into relationships with other people. So if your parent doesn't help you to form a healthy functioning ego, what happens is your ego is tested when you go into public school or when you go into relations with people. That's when you're going to realize you don't have a healthy functioning ego. You see what I'm saying? The ego is regulated through other people, but it's supposed to be fully healthy and formed when you become an adult, before you get into these type of relationships. But a lot of times people don't have a healthy functioning ego, and they get into relationships and find out there's something wrong with their ego, and now they have to go backwards and figure out where did it all go wrong. And sometimes they have to go far back as when they was like 2 and 3 years old, right? So once you get damaged ego, whether it's from abandonment, you might have had a narcissistic mama. I did. And they didn't give you much love. They was constantly abandoning you. Mine was. You start to form deregulated emotions. Your emotions become out of whack. Now, you may not notice a person has a deregulated emotion just by knowing them. Sometimes it's internal and sometimes it could be external. It just depends on what type of personality disorder you have. Majority of the time with narcissists, it's internal, and with BPD, borderline personality syndrome, it is external. And histrionics have external behavioral issues, external unhealthy emotional deregulations. Schizoid have internal emotional deregulations. Antisocial, it could be both. So it just depends on what type of personality disorder you have. But the common factor in personality disorders is they have an unhealthy functioning ego. It's not functioning. With a narcissist, it's pretty much abandoned. It's not there. With a BPD, it could be bruised, highly bruised, to the point where it's almost gone, but it's not quite gone. That's why behavioral therapy works for BPD. If they go into behavioral cognitive therapy, it's treatable. You know what I'm saying? Antisocial disorder, it's somewhat treatable, and sometimes they outgrow those acting out type of behaviors, like committing crime and stuff like that. Sometimes as they get older and they get therapy, they see that, okay, I don't have to steal. I don't have to unalive people, things like that. Now, the unaliving can come from, like, let's say they get into a situation and they don't process a better way of handling their anger. It could possibly lead into some violent tendencies to unalive people, but it won't necessarily be somewhat of like how a serial killer might thirst for blood. Trigger warning. So a psychopath will thirst for the hurting of people, whereas an antisocial disorder, depending on which, how bad it is, they may just have self-soothing anxiety, so they have to go out and do things that will soothe their need to have money or their need to be in charge. So it sort of have like a narcissistic sting to it. A lot of these personality disorders do have a narcissistic foundational to it, but it doesn't mean that the person is a narcissist. They may have some narcissistic tendencies along with these other personality disorders. So you might start to get confused, like, well, what's the difference between a histrionic and a borderline syndrome or a bipolar? They all have similar, when you're just looking from the external and you don't understand these diseases, they all have similar behavioral patterns, but they all don't have the same stem of thinking that triggers it. So a histrionic person, their source of why they're doing it could be from the lack of attention they received when they were growing up. So they just thirst for constant supply. Whereas a BPD, they may not search for supply, but when they do get the supply, their fear of abandonment causes them to do what's called acting out. So when I was younger, I had very strong symptoms of borderline because of my anxiety. Okay, so majority of them are under the anxiety disorder spectrum. So there's a spectrum, just like how, this toilet seat is hard, it's hurting my butt. Just like how, what was I about to say? Autism. Autism has a spectrum. Some of the autistic people are highly functionable, some are not. Some has to get a lot of assistance, where some they're on their own. My neighbor has a son, he's autistic, and he goes to the store, he goes to school on his own, handsome boy. And you wouldn't really know he has it until he starts, he shows you little signs that he has it, right? But then you have some people, they're severely, you can tell they have it. But same thing with BPD, same thing with narcissism. There's a spectrum. So you might have some people that have narcissistic disorder and they don't walk around hurting people, but you damn sure better not be in a relationship with them because they're going to drive you crazy, right? And then you might have some narcissistic people, they're so malignant and wicked that there's no end to how far they will go to hurt you. I need to cut this. It's not even. I need to just do this whole hair over, but right now I'm just whatever. What caused my symptoms of BPD? Signs that you have BPD. Self-harm. Self-harm is one of the biggest signs. Acting out. Not being able to control your emotions. Your emotions is hot and cold. Now, bipolar is similar to that, but the bipolar, they go on a whole excursion with it. So when they're feeling down, it's going to be a wave of a long-lasting situation. It could last for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months. It could last a long time. BPD is daily. It's by the minute. We can switch it off and on, right? A lot of times with BPD, it usually triggers when the ego is tested, which is in relationships, and high stress is when you'll see mostly a BPD act out. So BPD moms, they make bad mothers because they fantasize too much of what they're like, this type of like idealistic type of people. They think about everything in here and then they externalize it very bad. So it doesn't match what they're thinking. So you might think of a baby like, oh, goo goo gaga gaga. And then when the baby's crying in real life, oh my God, I want to throw this baby out the window. Trigger warning, right? So these are things that BPD people experience. I don't really know how I could say like with borderline, how they, not borderline, what am I trying to say? Bipolar. I can't really speak for bipolar because I've never really had those feelings of bipolar, but I know what it feels like to have the symptoms of BPD and even feelings of narcissism. You know when you're being narcissistic. Everybody has experienced narcissism because it's a part of your personality and it's a part of your life. You have to deal with healthy narcissism. But when you get into these relationships and these people have personality disorders, a lot of it can stem from how they were brought up by the mama, right? So when they were forming object permanency with their mama, something got distorted. They didn't get to fully function with the mama as object permanent. So there was a lot of inconsistencies in forming object permanency. That's one of the issues. Then the other issue is individuation. Those things are very, very important for you to build a healthy ego within yourself. So when your mama was in whatever age, maybe between, I would say 6 months is when you have some level of awareness that there's a person in the room, to maybe about 4 years old. If the mother came around you as a child, you don't know that when the mother leaves your presence, she still exists as a person, but your brain doesn't have that intellect yet to tell you, mommy left, but she's coming back. But some mothers, they do this thing to the baby where they don't, like, okay, so let's say they send the baby to daycare, or their baby is in the room and then she's playing with the baby 1 minute and then she stops playing with the baby. She just changes her emotions. It's similar to abandoning the baby. Any type of changes that is abrupt or that affects that secure attachment to that child, it's sort of the same thing as leaving the room. So I need you to understand that. So when you have secure attachments, that is a foundation that the parent gives you by how they treat you. So even though you might not remember when you were a baby that your mama was throwing your ass in the crib, starving you, not changing your pamper, it caused a deep wound in yourself that you're not aware of, and you grew up with that wound as a adolescent. So you might have started acting out as an adolescent in school because you were craving that feeling of warmth and love. And the teachers didn't help because some of the teachers are just as mean as your mama. Some of them are just as narcissistic as your parents. So now you get this feeling of there is a poor object relation that you form with people as a whole. You start to compartmentalize people as poor relations. So you build poor relationships with people and poor relationships with your core self. So with a BPD, which is a borderline personality disorder, we build poor relations with external because we looked at ourselves as poorly externally like we're worthless external to people. When you treat a child bad, you can put codependency issues within them, narcissistic tendencies within them. You can put borderline tendencies within them, anxiety, schizoid, not schizophrenia. That is two different conditions. Schizoid. We're not going to get into it right now because it's just so many things that you have to understand when it comes to the mental and how people process stuff. The brain splits. You have to understand all of that. People disassociate their personalities. Like 1 minute they could be this, next minute they could be that. But it's not schizophrenia. Narcissistic people split. Borderline tendencies, people split. Codependencies, they don't really split, but they don't have an ego. So that's why they let people abuse them. They become so codependent. They do what's called enmeshment. They enmesh within other people and become that person. They want to disappear and become intertwined so deeply that it's like they want your ego to become their ego. You regulate them by becoming one with them. So they form unhealthy attachments to people that most of the time don't care about them. And even if you care about them, it's unhealthy to attach yourself to a person for them to regulate you. A lot of people are going into relationships looking to be, it's not just validation, they are looking to be regulated. And as I said earlier, You are responsible for your own agency. You have to govern yourself. When you meet another person, you should already be fully functioning. But a lot of people, they get into relationships and they're not fully functioning. So they do what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they feel worthless, they act worthless. So like I was saying before, when you're forming object relations with people, it has to come from a healthy mindset in order to have a healthy relationship, whether it's friendships, family, connections. I keep licking my lips because it's dry. Let me go get... When I start talking, my lips get dry. Let me put some of this, some of this. It's not nice and cold like I like it. Because they got one of those fake fridges. You know, those fridges that's really a cooler. So it's going to take a minute to get cold. I want to go downstairs and get my oatmeal, but I just feel so tired. And you know, you got to put your coat back on and go downstairs and go to the car. But I ain't really got nothing to eat other than that chicken. But I don't want to eat that late tonight. I think oatmeal would have settled my stomach. I don't like going to bed. I don't like going to bed hungry. So I'm sorry if I'm jumping around a little bit. I hope y'all following me. The reason why I put peekaboo in the title is because there's a game that the mommy plays or the daddy plays or anybody plays with the baby. It's called peekaboo. Peekaboo is kind of like an explanation to what object constancy look like, what object permanency look like. In the baby's mind, when you do this, you disappear. Because the baby's mind is not mature yet. It hasn't formed all the capabilities of understanding stuff that is not around, that's not unseen, still has an existence. So when you do this, you disappear. When you do this, peekaboo, the baby's like, ooh, because the baby is happy to see your face again. So that's what happens in real life. People be bugging out because you disappear to go to work. And they calling you like, you know, what are you doing? And you're like, oh my God, I seen you yesterday. Relax, right? I used to be that kind of person. When I was younger, I would form these unhealthy attachments when I would date people, and I'd be feeling some type of way. Okay, hold on. Let me say this right, because some of what I'm saying is not completely. Sometimes when you have an unhealthy attachment style, you attract people that are unhealthy for you. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So a lot of times when I did feel clingy to certain situations, sometimes it was because the person really was a bad person. They really was cheating, or they really was doing stuff that was making me feel some type of way. But what happened is when I started seeing that people do stuff like that, like they lie, they cheat, they steal, whatever, I started putting all people in that box because I didn't understand that people have different upbringings. People are different. Like not everybody's cheating on you. Not everybody's this way. Not everybody's that way. So it became me not really believing in people and having a low view of what a good person really stands for. Like I really didn't think there was good people out there. Does that make sense? Okay. Part of that is because I saw my mom cheat. My mom was a cheater. She would cheat on my dad. Hold on. Now, I don't know if my dad was a cheater, but I know he was sick over her. Like, he loved that woman. He was a narcissist, too, but my dad, their story was crazy. But I would get addicted to the fantasy of being in a relationship instead of looking at the actual person that was no good for me. And I would form these weird relationships in my head. And it's called internal objectification, right? You internalize the person that you're dealing with because you don't understand how to form a healthy external relationship. So you internalize, I know it's looking like a mullet. I'm going to fix that. You internalize people as objects when you become older and you have a distorted way to deal with human relations. So you start forming unhealthy attachments to these people. You either become super clingy because you have object inconsistency issues. You look at people as inconsistent. So the minute, and the person doesn't have to be doing anything wrong. The stuff I'm explaining is all on the person with the dysfunction. It's all internal. It's all up here, right? You may be dealing with a person that has the same issues as you or have a personality disorder. So both of y'all could be doing the same thing to each other. It just depends. Or it could be you, the healthy person, the other person is doing it to you. It just depends. But it all ends up dysfunctional. So if you have inconsistency, object relations, you'll start being like maybe clingy. You start thinking of the person as not available when they just basically have things to do. You start acting out. So that could be what a codependent might be. So they require constant reassurance, constant being around that person. They can't function. They can't think. The person is thinking for them. You know what I mean? It's like the person becomes their missing parent. And it all goes back to the fact that you feel you never had a real parent. So you're basically looking for a parent. You're looking for a mother figure or father figure. When it all boils down to it, that's what you're looking for. And then even when you find that person that's willing to be that parent to you, you're still not going to be happy because you're distorted. Like your view of everything in life is distorted. So even if they're giving you the parenting things that you need, being there for you, reassuring you, being the supply that you need, it's always going to be an issue. Because one, your ego is not functioning. You need a program reset in your ego. Some people can't be programmed. It can't be fixed. So they always have ego functioning distortions. So when they fantasize about people, there's going to be times where you don't, where that person doesn't fulfill that fantasy of what you pictured in your mind. Even though they might be trying their damnedest, it's never going to be to the epitome of what you envision in your mind. Because this is a whole functioning separate being. You cannot internalize people and make them become whatever's in your head. That's not really falling in love with the person. You are falling in love with an object fantasy of that person. So it's kind of like, you know, when you have a crush, like a celebrity crush, and you say something like, oh, that's my dream girl, or that's my dream guy. And then you see them in person and they don't look the same. They might look worse or they might look better, but let's say they look worse. And let's say they don't act like how you've seen them on TV. But you have a superficial liking fan base for this person. When you see them in person and they act different, it will do something to you, like it might disappoint you. That's if you're not mature. So this is what happens. People start to form immature fantasies about the objects that they're with. Now, there's another thing called where out of sight, out of mind. I started to think like that when I started forming relationships with people. And that was because I was let down so much because of my consumption of people. This is when I was younger. I had to grow out of those stages because I didn't understand why I was so emotionally deregulated over something as small as like someone rejects me. I become emotionally deregulated. You wouldn't know I'm emotionally deregulated because it's all internal. But when I'm faced with the situation where someone pushes my back against the wall, I will become externally deregulated. So it's hard to explain in one video because this is all psychological trauma from when you were a child, and then you replay it when you become an adult. So the borderline person, their identity, right? How they form a self, a core self, like who you are as a person, is identifiable with the relationships that they have with people. So that's a bad way to be, because if that relationship fails, the borderline will disintegrate. Same thing with a narcissist. They form object relations in their brain. So when they get in a relationship, They put that person in their brain, and that is the only person they fall in love with. So it's partially themselves, because that thought is partially made from their fantasy. So if you're a narcissist dream girl and they put you in their brain, and that's the thought that they had of you, whatever that thought was and that fantasy, you cannot deviate from that feeling of what they think of you. Once you deviate, it will become a devaluation. You will start to get devalued. They don't want the real you. They want the person here. The borderline is similar. They want an attachment to become an enmeshment, where it's so engulfed in becoming the consumption of that person. It's like we drain that person of all their energy to the point where it satisfies our every insecurity of abandonment, because it all goes back to abandonment, anxiety, abandonment. So a borderline person will have what's called an approach avoidant style when it comes to how they attach to people. They'll approach you, engulf you, suck you dry, and disappear. So that's why a borderline will leave a lot of broken hearts, because of the on off, hot cold, hot cold. So it comes off as emotionally unstable. That's the best way I could put it. Emotionally unstable. So now, when two people that have these disorders or these issues or these problematic situations get together, we're going to have a lot of mental manipulation going on. So when you're in these type of relationships where there's a lot of mental play, understand that there is some type of trauma going on. There's some type of personality disorder going on. When you have these guys, they get hot and cold on you. Oh, baby, 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 I love you. Right? And they trying to act like they all available. And then as soon as they leave your presence, it's like you don't get a phone call until 5 days later or some shit. You're like, oh, why are you so commitment phobic? And then you find out he was like that in all his relationships. He's probably a borderline. He probably has BPD. Some of these people don't mean to be this way, but they're not coming to grips. Why I have a problem with these people is because you can't just get a pass on hurting people because you've been hurt. Get a grip on that shit and stop hurting people. And that's why I don't have no sympathy when it comes to people doing bad things to just pacify and soothe their own insecurities. And that's why I said I had to go back and do the work, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. When stress got real high and it got to the point where I felt like I was worthless, I used to think about offing myself. Like, no, don't nobody love me. I might as well just get up out of here. And I thought having kids would stop that feeling I used to get of worthlessness, emptiness. It wasn't even lonely. It just felt empty. I don't know how to explain it. It was like a big ass void in me. Like, oh, can you, like, it was like torturous to go to bed at night. And I used to live alone for a long time, because I told y'all what happened with my sister, my sister that's passed away. She was not mentally healthy, and she used to try to torture me. So I had to move out. And living on my own, I felt abandoned by my whole family. And that feeling never went away until I became like older in my years. So anytime I got into a relationship, I clung onto that person for dear life. Like, but they don't know I was feeling that way. But my reactions, it was too intense. They like, man, you're so intense. Like, calm down. I ain't going nowhere. I'm like, don't leave me, That's not what I said, but that's what I felt. And it's like, even when I formed relationships, like when I was married, my ex wasn't like if I could go back now, would I marry that type of guy? Probably not. But when you not mentally well and you're not whole, you pick what's good for you at that time. That makes sense? So he was probably the only guy, I would say, at that time that didn't look at my clinginess as weird. Like, I wanted Me and him became like Bonnie and Clyde. When you seen him, you seen me. We was just inseparable. And there's some couples, they have that relationship where they're inseparable and they're not mentally ill. They work that, it just worked that way. But I'm just saying, sometimes you bond with a person where y'all both at mentally. You see what I'm saying? So it just works out that way. I can't tell y'all about this past relationship I just had because he constantly watches the video. So he'll probably be like, oh, did you say that I was this way? And, so I can't, like, maybe years down the line, I can break down the mental demise of the both of us and how things, what I'm saying, was a vicious cycle. But when I look back in retrospect of all the pain I've had with all my relationships over the years, I have to take some accountability as to the role that I played and how not understanding my ego dysfunctions played into me attracting those type of men. So you can't just say it's them, it's them, it's them. If you attract a narcissist or if you attract an authoritative, what'd you call them? Controlling or passive aggressive, because not necessarily if he's passive aggressive that he's a narcissist, but it would look like narcissistic tendencies, but he may not have a narcissistic disorder. You know what I mean? Because a narcissistic disorder is an exact pattern of behavior, right? So, when I look back at how I attracted these men, these particular types of men, I had to look back and I thought to myself, I attract a particular type of man. It's something that I'm putting out there that is attracting these particular type of men. So I noticed one of them was the fantasy thinking men. And when I say fantasy, I'm not talking about sex. When we're young, we form attachments to our mama, right? And we get what's called an Oedipus complex. We get attracted to the father if you're a female, and then the woman gets attracted to, the boy child gets attracted to the mother. This is going to be what's considered your first love. So I didn't get attracted to my dad because my dad was harsh and abusive. So my first love became my mom. My epitome, how you say? My complex was with my mom. I fell in love with my mom. This is not on no... It's so deep that when you explain in psychology to average people, I don't mean to say average people, you have to really read and learn these milestones that children go through. Some of y'all may not remember all your milestones because maybe your life was so great, you just flew through life. Or maybe it was just so bad, you didn't get to even experience that. Or maybe you didn't have parents, so you never got the Oedipus complex. But I had parents. I had two parents all the way up until 13. And they were dysfunctional parents. So I still went through those milestones that Sigmund Freud talks about. One of the things that we have as a human is called libido. This is the life force within us. Part of that life force is the sex drive. And then part of that drive is the death drive. These are three things that go on that motivates the human, right? Part of that libido is your life force. You are attracted to either your same-sex parent or your other parent, the other sex. That happens between the age of 2 to 4. You can kind of see it in some kids when they get attached to that parent. Like, let's say the little girl, she gets so attached to daddy. She wants to jump on top of daddy's lap, kiss on daddy. And you're like, damn, she acting like the wife. She wants to push mommy out the bed and get in the bed with daddy. Not like that. Not what y'all saying. Like, don't make it sound crazy. This is all normal part of the psyche. Same thing with the boy child. He wants to be on mommy. And when daddy comes around, the boy child, he gets very protective. He don't want daddy around mommy. This is normal. But sometimes when that chain is broken, dysfunction, the mama pushes you away, the daddy pushes you away, where does that drive go? Where does all that energy that you were supposed to process between 2 and 4 and you didn't get a chance to release it, where does it go? to the unconscious mind. It takes a back seat and it says, you know what? Since I wasn't able to do it at 4, I'm going to do it at 44. And this is where you get the people that act immature when they get into these situations with their loved ones. They never had a chance to fully process these stages. So now you're having these issues in these relationships where it feels like a separation. Every day it feels like a separation. So every day you wake up with your partner, this is when you have, I'm talking about personality disorders. It's not regular people. Normal people don't have these issues, okay? You're waking up every day and it's a separation and a reset. Every day, separation, reset, separation, reset. Because every day you're having this fear that something is going to go wrong with this person. Because you have an issue. You have an external or internal issue that you have not addressed. So anything this person does is life or death. It's a risk to your security blanket. So no matter how much they try to show you, you're always going to find a default way to say, this is not good enough, or I'm not good enough. The codependent person probably going to say, I'm not good enough. The narcissistic person probably going to say, you're not good enough. The bipolar person going to say, we're not good enough. It's always going to be something wrong until they decide, when they get aware of what's going on, they have to get the help. It's not going to get any better. This is why a lot of times with these relationships, when they get into arguments with the partner, it goes into an all-out war, because they're like, they don't look at the actual situation. They're looking at all the things that can go wrong after the situation is over. Like, oh, this person's not going to love me no more. It's because they haven't formed any type of object permanency with that person. They look at that person as, they can leave me at any moment. This is with all these personality disorders. They're looking at it as, this person could leave me at any moment. So when there's a fight, they don't look at it as it was just a fight over some cornbread. They look at it as, this person is going to divorce me. They're going to pack their bags and I'm never going to see them again. So now you see this extreme hyperventilating, like, it's like a panic attack. It's an all-out war internally with these people. And I know that feeling because I used to do it. As soon as I get into a situation, me and the guy that we're talking and whatever, I'm not talking about like a new relationship. Because a new relationship, you probably are going to feel a little bit like unsure. I'm talking about, y'all have already said, you the one, I like you, we're going to be together, but something goes wrong. And in your mind, you're thinking way too advanced and the situation doesn't even call for it. A lot of women do it. They be either my brain is dead right now, but they be doing it, right? Overreacting. And the dude that they might be with is like, it's not that serious. Can we just go to bed? I don't want to talk about it. And certain women, they'll keep pushing. The reason why they're doing that, in some cases, they may have a personality disorder. So the anxiety kicks in when you have an argument to the point where they feel like when you wake up in the morning, you have to do a reset on the whole relationship. Not looking at it as it was just an argument. We can get over it. We can forgive and forget. So what they do is they start holding grudges. They might start playing little mental games, avoiding you, the approach avoidance style or the straight avoidance style. They jump into these attachment styles that they learned from childhood to adjust to the stress. So a lot of times it's not even about you no more. It's about what they got going on mentally. So when you start to see these situations, understand there's some mental issues going on with that person. And you don't have to be mean and say, oh, here you go again with that whole anxiety flare up. You want to act out. Because it's already a struggle with that person going through it. They don't need you, highlighting that they are doing something dysfunctional. If you truly love that person and you say, okay, is this something that this person can work out? Like if they got therapy or maybe some light medication, Is this something that I'm willing to deal with? Depend on how, how down the rabbit hole they are, because when it's really bad, you don't want to get yourself involved in that. But if it's something where they just coming through some unaware trauma, right? And that's another thing. When you get with a person, everything is a risk. Because even that person may not know something might trigger their trauma. They might be going good for a while, and then all of a sudden something happened, they lose their job or something, and you see a whole nother side of them. You be like, who in the hell is this person? So sometimes it's not good to judge people. Like, I don't really even like to judge narcissistic people unless they really are malignant. But you got some narcissistic people, they themselves, they don't want to be narcissistic. They come on, they might have a podcast and they'll say, I was a narcissist all my life and I really just want to change. Every day is a struggle. Because every day is a struggle. You know what I'm saying? Every day was a struggle for me when I had relationships. Because every day I had to give the other person the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Because people that have borderline tendencies, whether it's low level or high level, I have low level, but when I was young, if I was in the wrong type of relationship, it will push me to such a unstable emotional level of deep, dark depression that I just could not snap out of it. I couldn't snap out of it. And this is why young girls, especially if you have daughters, pay attention to their emotional, their emotional stability. Because people be like, oh, I never knew that person was had, I don't even know what I could say on YouTube. I didn't even know that person will unalive themselves, right? Because they were acting normal every day. The thing about unaliving yourself, it doesn't have a pattern. The thought can come like a wave. So how you would be able to see it is when the person is going through something, pay attention to how they respond to what they're going through. They might say, oh, I'm really, really tired. I don't want to be bothered. So you might see a change in their energy levels and they might start acting a little bit withdrawn. They might start seeing things like, oh, I'm so tired of people. You just have to pay attention to the before signs. You don't see it the day of. Because when we even think about it, like when I used to think about it when I was younger, I wouldn't know that I'm going to think about it until the minute of. Does that make sense? It's not something I would plan a whole week out. Like, I'm going to do it on Friday. Everybody that has these ideations, suicide ideations, it's different for almost everybody. But psychology have learned that with people with borderline syndrome, they tend to have it sporadic. Just as sporadic as their mood is sporadic as their thought of that. So a BPD person might do it out of nowhere, whereas a person with bipolar might think about it. It just depends. So you can't really put a timeline on it. So if you have a child, especially these teenagers, they go through these feelings of depression, and we don't know if the depression is permanent, if it's something from hereditary, a childhood wound, or just an environmental situation. So you have to check in with your kids, check in to see how they're feeling, how are they handling stress at school. They may have a new boyfriend or girlfriend. How is that going? You know what I mean? Like, is social media in their life? Is there something going on with rumors? All these things play a role. So as far as right now, I'm 50. I don't have those thoughts no more, but I had it. I won't say I never had it in my adult life. I had it in my 40s. It was a very flighty thought, but maybe one day I'll talk about, why I had the thought, but right now I can't talk about it. But when I had the thought, I think I contemplated it for 24 hours. I contemplated how it would feel if my kids never had me. How would it feel if the person I was with at the time lost me because of that situation? Like, I contemplated how it would make other people feel, not so much me. So Would it happen again? I highly doubt it, because what triggers it in a lot of situations is when a person takes too much of my emotions. So when I was in relationships that wasn't suitable for me, not all the relationships, I'm just saying, that is a trigger for me. If I'm in a relationship where I'm giving too much of myself and I'm not getting, like, my cup is not getting refilled, I could see that being a possibility. What do I see it now in my life? Not really, because I learned to love myself. But back then, when I didn't, I felt this void within myself. It was easy to entertain that thought. But now that I feel like I've finished my karmic cycle with these people, with all the energy vampires, all the dysfunctional people, all the toxic people. I feel I've completed that cycle. So I'm going into a new era. I love myself so much more now. When I think back on the stuff that I survived, I have a deeper appreciation for myself now. I don't come down as hard as I used to on myself. I'm not changing my, like, I don't have to say it, like, I'm not changing my perspectives and personality to adjust to other people's personalities. I used to do that a lot back in the day. I would chameleon myself to be accepted by somebody that I care about. I'm not doing those things no more. You know, some women change their wigs every day. That's kind of like when you want to be accepted, you change your personality. It's not really your personality, but you'll change your persona. So I kept changing personas to be fitted in a relationship with a man. So, like, let's say a man says, oh, I don't like women that curse. I'll try my best to be like this proper speaking, just trying too fucking hard. They wouldn't know that I was doing it because I still had like pride. I didn't want to be like looking like I'm a pick Misha or desperate, you know what I mean? So I would try my best to still keep some level of identity because I was still a strong person internally. It's just I didn't know my worth. I didn't know how strong I could be. So when life kept throwing me sour apples and I was still making apple juice with that bitch, I realized I got something in me. I'm really a dope ass person. Like, I'm a good person. And I started really seeing my value. I was like, all these people that be saying that crap about me, I'll be looking at how their life turn out, the shit that they do to people, and I'll be like, damn, if God ain't manifesting to me right now that I need to start appreciating myself, I don't know what is. All the people that hurt me, when I look back at the shit the karma that they get, I be like, okay, God must love me. I'm not saying I'm laughing at their demise, but it is kind of funny because a lot of these people will intentionally hurt me. Because another thing about people with borderline syndrome is we love too hard to the point where it's unrealistic. Now, what makes a borderline syndrome person a bad mom? So many things. One of the things is emotional deregulation. Emotional deregulation is not healthy for a child. It is one of the most unhealthiest things for a child. So, according to Dr. Vaknin, he has a YouTube channel, one of the dopest ass psychologists with narcissism. That man is the bomb epitome of a psychology narcissist doctor. I used to listen to this man about 2-3 years ago, morning, noon, and nights. I was obsessed because he broke down borderlines and narcissism. Those are the two strongest personality disorders when it comes to dealing with love. The reason why is because they are the most longevity out of the other personality disorders that will stick it out into a relationship. A narcissist will stick with you through thick and motherfucking thin. This is why you can't get rid of them. Okay? This is why they're so problematic. This is why people fall in love with them, because they're always there. Same thing with a borderline. They're problematic, but they're always there. So I was like, this man is onto something with this stuff. So a borderline mother, she's very reliable, but she's problematic. Her moods is all over the place. And if she's really high on the spectrum, she's going to wreak havoc on your life. She's going to be calling you names. She's going to be abusive, maybe physically, verbally, because she cannot get a grip on reality. Borderline people live in a dream state in their head because they never was able to accept reality. They never got a functioning ego. The ego stabilizes you when you're dealing with people. This is why you see some of these men and they have ego problems and they just get so deregulated around women. It goes back to their childhood. Their mama never taught them how to relate with people. So now when they're around people, they don't know how to have a functionable ego. And when you try to explain that to them, their ego gets more bruised and they get worse. They get more defensive and they get more anxiety. And then it's like just straight out psycho. They become a straight out psychopath. It's called secondary psychopathy, but secondary psychopathy is just basically a reaction to your normal pattern, and then you switch out and you start acting like the same traits of a psychopath, but it's a temporary psychopath. So when you have a personality disorder, a lot of times you are on the border of secondary psychopath. And this is why you be seeing those type of relationships on TV where it may be a little dysfunctional one day, and then a couple years later, somebody end up 6 feet under because they get into a moment of temporary secondary psychopathy and they snap. They call split. When those personality disorders split, they literally forget who they are on this side, and the psychopath is here and it's in full force. When you push these people to the brink, they are scary. When you push a narcissist, borderlines have the key to unlock narcissist people. That's why they don't like us. We have the key to unlock them. Why? Because we understand empathy. As much as the borderline is problematic, they understand empathy. So that is the narcissist kryptonite. So when we pierce a narcissist's heart, they become emotionally deregulated and they can't control themselves. Now you get to see who they really are. And when they become unleashed, they go into secondary psychopathy and they're ready to unalive people, hurt people, do whatever they have to do. But you need to be able to see what a person's capable of. And you don't have to push a person by doing things crazy. Sometimes you could just tap into something that they was trying to keep from you, and next thing you know, they start to unleash whatever's going on within them, and that's when you get to see what's really going on. But that has nothing to do with what I'm saying when it comes to relationships. I'm just saying, when you understand the deep psychological disturbances in some of these personality disorders, when you see it on the forefront in a relationship or in parenting styles with people, or in your family members, you're not going to sit there and try to argue with somebody that is in a moment of psychosis. It's not a smart thing to do. So if you didn't know this person was a narcissist initially, and then you push one of their buttons and now they're in secondary psychopath. Okay, I have to rephrase this. 1 second. The narcissist goes into primary psychopath when they lose it. The borderline goes into secondary psychopath when they lose it. The reason why the borderline goes into secondary is because the borderline has one thing over the narcissist, which is empathy. So when the borderline gets mad at a person or a situation and they lose it, they're still looking at that person as their loved one. When the narcissist loses it, they're not looking at that person as a loved one. They're looking at that person as an all-out enemy that they have to get rid of. So there's so much I want to say about this whole situation, but we just have to understand when we're dealing with relationships I don't like having a one size shoe fits all theory, because when I hear some of these relationship coaches or these girls that get on these podcasts and just start talking about men this and men that and relationships, it's so much deeper than just labeling it as men and women don't get along. This psychology stuff has no gender. You have to understand you're dealing with people's minds, hearts, bodies, and souls. When you start coming together with other people, you have to know what you're dealing with. I wish there was like a tag we could put on people and they'll say, okay, I am narcissistic with suicide tendencies. So that way, when you go into a room on a dating site or just in general in everyday life, you're like, okay, well, I got BPD issues. I ain't dealing with your psychopathic ass. All right, I need somebody stable because I got insecurities. It's like you just need to know. You need to know what you're dealing with. And people are not honest. Now, I know y'all probably going to judge me, especially my haters. They're probably going to be like, oh, she's admitting to she got issues. Everybody got issues. And I have dealt with it. I'm at peace with it. I'm at peace. So now, building healthy attachments is my number one goal. With anybody I come across, whether it's a female friendship, a romantic relationship, a job relationship where I'm working with coworkers, I'm on that type of time where it's healthy attachments. If me and you exchange numbers and we work together and you start showing me that you're a little bit off, I'm blocking your number. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not dealing with the gossip. If I see you go to the office and you all about the gossip, now it's okay to talk about the company and just express certain things. But if you're one of those people that be like, girl, did you see what that guy did? Blah, 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 blah. I'm not doing it. I'm staying far away from your ass. So now that you know what to look out for when it comes to unhealthy people, the unhealthy attachments, and unhealthy, with these childhood wounds and stuff, you know not what not to mess with. I'm trying to say, like, when the mom is a bad mom, for whatever reason, she can bring up narcissistic children. She can bring up, her children is more than likely going to have a personality disorder. If she's a bad mom, especially if she has BPD or narcissism, she's going to have a child either with BPD or narcissism. I look at narcissism as the predatory personality disorder, and then I look at BPD as the victim personality disorder. You victimize yourself, and narcissist people victimize others. So BPD is like a failed narcissist. They had too much care and empathy, so they couldn't go all the way to become a villain. But a BPD can be a villain when they're in secondary psychopathic mode. So a lot of times when BPD moms have babies, they tend to snap a lot. They have that snap mentality, because when the reality of motherhood and stress hits them, they tend to split and become secondary psychopaths to their children. Now, the reason why I never went that far is because I learned a lot from my first daughter. When I was with her and I would yell over small things and she would go back and tell on me and tell people on me, it brought shame to me. So when my narcissistic mom was always trying to take people's kids, I didn't want to give her a reason. I wasn't the best mom. I made some videos talking about my motherhood, my journey, always loving children, but then having that emptiness inside, and children didn't fulfill that emptiness. Being in a relationship didn't fulfill the emptiness. I didn't know what was going to fulfill it. I just knew I didn't like being alone. I didn't like being in the house. I didn't want to be without children. So all these things I manifested, it came about, and I still was like, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. So the minute my ex-husband would do something wrong, I would make it be the reason why I should never got married. He was a control freak too. He had some really bad issues too. But what I'm saying is he was fully committed. I wasn't. Mentally, I wasn't. Initially, I was. But once that borderline stuff start kicking in and you start seeing the real life and you're like, it's like you're suffocating. Because I was losing myself. Our fear is abandonment. But the abandonment can come from somebody suffocating you. It's the engulfment of it. It's scary. Because what that means is now you have to fully let go and engulf into the situation. And if it don't work out, a borderline person will unalive themselves. That's how deep it go. That's why some of these men, when you leave them, they unaliving everybody. There probably was a borderline guy. That's just what they do. Sometimes when you push a borderline and they go secondary psychopath, it's a wrap. Depending on how mad you made that person, if you make a narcissist go primary psychopath, he getting rid of everybody. Or she. This is what you're dealing with. So I said, y'all got to stop playing with people. Stop playing with people's feelings. Stop jumping into these relationships with any and everybody. Get to know people. Because you don't know what they're thinking. I see some of these women on these podcasts jumping in and out of relationships, moving niggas in. You playing with your life and you're playing with your children's lives. This ain't no joke. This ain't no plaything. You play with a man's heart, that could be your last day. And these crazy ass women, she not only taking you out, she might go take out your whole family. When these women snap, they snap. And thank God I never got pushed that far. Thank the Lord. I had some common sense. But I know what it feels like. I know when thoughts come in here and it start fucking with you and these little evil thoughts start saying, they don't care about you. You should just disappear. Or sometimes the person will externalize that feeling and say, you should get rid of them. They may not have suicide ideation, but they'll suicide your ass. This is what we dealing with. So you thinking it's cute. Oh, they clingy. Oh, they call me 5 times a day. Oh, they love me. No, they fucking crazy. Wake up. This is why I became a psychologist. Because I understood something was not right and people are not telling the truth. They want to talk about all these relationship podcasts, but they're not talking about the psychological warfare that goes on with couples. They only want to talk about, oh, well, the man he's just not vulnerable. He just don't know how to express himself. Why? What happened to you at 5 years old? Who touched you? Who beat you up? Who abandoned you? Let's talk about it. Let's really, really talk about it. You have a whole relationship up here, but you don't want to express it in real life. That's why some of these men are quiet. Because they look at you as you're the external problem. He's already formed the relationship in his head. So you're talking, and you're annoying the shit out of him. So some of these things we have to come to grips with. Same thing with the women. They have a whole external love relationship with their father that they never got over. They looking to you to be the father that they never got over. So everything you're doing is never going to be good enough. They never passed their childhood trauma. So you're always going to be the problem. We have to come to grips with our shadow self. Stop running from it. It's only eating you up and eating up your relationships. It's eating up your children. You're running to drugs. You're coping with all these other things, sex, porn, drugs, fake religion. Come on. Meanwhile, the thing is still on your back. So I'm just saying, some of these relationships is not as easy as we want to make it sound. Oh, it's just a lack of compatibility. No, the motherfucker's just crazy. Sometimes crazy is not obvious. They're not just doing outwardly things. So yeah, when your mama is not giving you that love and stuff like that, you're going to have a dysfunctional object relation with these people. So now, some of these guys, and I'm not just picking on guys, I'm talking about in general, but I'm just making a statement. Some of these guys, they have a real bad attachment with their mama from young, and then when they get old, they don't realize that the reason why you may not be affectionate or you may not be open is not because you're a man and men don't like to talk. No, it might be that you have an issue with forming intimate relations with women because your mother never allowed you to express your ego. She might have been the type of mom that as soon as you express your feelings, she punching you out, telling you shut the hell up, or you look like your damn ugly ass daddy. You know, all these things don't go away. These are permanent residual scars. There's a song that Chris Brown said recently. It's called Residual. And he's talking about the past relationships that they leave these scars that it just never goes away. It's the same thing with your childhood. We have an imprint on our DNA that predetermines things that's going to happen when we be born. Are we going to become an alcoholic? Are we going to become a serial killer? Are we going to become a personality disorder? These are imprints on our DNA. So now we got nature versus nurture. So if you gave birth to a potential narcissist because they have the DNA makeup, how they express emotions, you know what I'm saying? How the signals go back and forth. So they be born into a situation where it's a loving home, 2 parents, they both functionable. He or she may not become a narcissist. They may become a fully functionable person, even though they had the DNA imprint of that possibility, or the possibility of a person on alcohol. Some of these things are predispositions. You can't control some of these things, but you can be in an environment that is flourishable to prevent it from becoming your reality. So if you know that you have the predisposition for what? Diabetes, what you going to do? You're going to watch how you eat. So if you know you have the predisposition of borderline syndrome, you're going to watch who you're in a relationship with. You're going to watch the environments you hang out around. Because if you know you can't emotionally regulate all the time, you have a habit of overanalyzing or becoming overly emotional, why would you go with a guy that has absolutely no emotion? Or a woman that has no emotion? That's too much of an opposite. It's too extreme. It's going to put you in too much deregulation of your emotions. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't govern your own emotions, but when you are in a relationship, that person is supposed to be your better half in your everyday relationship. So you still need to be compatible. I'm getting sleepy. I'm trying to fight it, but I need to get in the shower. I'll just make another part to this video because when I get tired, I start to lose my train of thought. I just wanted to add to that. Oh, one of the things I wanted to say, this thing is not hot. I was saying that when you have these personality disorders and you get into conflict with people, the reason why you're looking at the people as all good or all bad versus just a situation is because they're not matching the reality that you fantasize about them in their head, in your head. So let's say you meet a guy and you have these personality disorders and y'all get into it like an argument. The reason why you're the person with the personality disorder and you're taking what he's saying way out of context. You know, he just got upset with you about something really small. something that could be, forgotten the next day. But you're harboring on it so much to the point where it turns into another issue. You start bringing up stuff from the past, you start overreacting. The reason why you're doing that is because you have put that person in a all bad versus all good situation. You're now making this person the villain, the bad character. This is why you see these situations where a person will get into a relationship and then a week later you'll be like, what happened? Why y'all broke up? And they'd be like, no, that person was a bastard. They wasn't no good. And then you're like, okay, but what did they do? And you find out it was like something small, and then you're like, that seems a bit extreme. The reason why it's extreme is because this person has it's a ego dysfunction. The ego keeps you balanced. So when you're doing decision making and analyzing, you analyze as a balanced thinker. But when you have a bad, dysfunctional ego, it's broken or it's a weak ego, you make extreme decisions. For example, a man with a weak ego might go and sleep with a prostitute and then try to justify his behavior when it's an irrational behavior. So instead of forming relationships with a woman, he'll just go sleep with prostitutes after prostitutes, knowing that he may still want to be in a committed relationship. This is bad ego functioning. They go and they do extreme things. So a person that has these type of personality disorders, you'll notice a pattern in how they have dysfunctional relationships. They're always maybe jumping in and out of relationships, or they can't hold a job down, or they're always going from 0 to 100 if somebody tell them a small criticism. They can't contain their emotions. They're just all over the place. And then they could also be the type that's the villain, where they're constantly overly controlling others. They want to control their environment so much that they become a control freak, like a narcissist or a psychopath. They're very intentional on their target. So you'll start to see these symptoms in how it plays out in the relationship. It'll have these vicious cycles, these toxic bursts. It'll be toxic a little bit and then full-blown chaotic, and then toxic and then full-blown chaotic. That's what you'll see with like antisocial disorder personalities, relationships, bipolar when they get into relationship, manic depressive people when they get into relationship, anyone that has anxiety disorders, depending on how extreme, but it is going to be some level of toxicity or dysfunction. I'm just saying. Even if they're taking medication, if you know that this person is in that type of cycle, you have to be prepared for what can take place. So, yeah. It's a lot, but this is what's happening. Why is this thing not hot at all? It's weird. Anyways, I'm still in school, still in psychology school. So there's more that I will be learning. You know what I mean? I'm just giving y'all mostly from my experience, from my childhood. Oh, I wanted to tell y'all a quick story about how I developed anxiety and borderline tendencies. When I was growing up, my father was real mean to me. He was mean to everybody. He was just miserable. But, he did teach us a lot of things. I will say he did show us domestic life. He was a very domestic person. He taught us how to cook. He taught us musical instruments. He taught us karate. He was a functionable dad. He went to the parks. We did picnics, but we always got a beating for something when we got home. So it was this volatility of it's never secure. The emotions is always hot and cold with my mom and dad. So my father was hot and cold. My mother was detached. No emotion. She didn't show us no emotion. She didn't tell us she loved us. It was always just, I'm that bitch. She stood back and was like pampered. My father was like her emotional slave. He would cook for her. rub her toes. He was obsessed with this woman, obsessed with her beauty. And she just soaked it all in. So when she kept having babies after babies, my mother had 8 kids. She just kept having babies after babies. I was the second oldest. I had to raise those babies because my mother was not present. She would just leave the house, be gone all day, come back home. She used to wear nice clothes. And I kind of was obsessed with my mom as far as like emulating what a woman looks like. So I was like, because I just thought she was so pretty. I seen the reaction of how men treated her, so I call her the Lilith demon, because my mom, she just the epitome of a Jezebel spirit. So growing up, I was in love with my mom as a little girl. I just wanted her affection. I just was like, I want my mom. But what my mother would do, she would ignore us, and my father would constantly just be beating us for every little thing. He was miserable. He was an immigrant. He didn't have no green card, so he had to take whatever job he could get. Meanwhile, she going to college, getting all the the FAFSA, the government loans and all that, just living her best life. Like she didn't have 8 kids at home getting tortured to death. So I would say around like 5 and 6, between 5 to 9 years old, my mother would like start arguments with my dad over small stuff so that she could disappear. And she would disappear for days and be with men. And they would like buy her clothes, and she would come back with all these shopping bags. Like she was, what do you call that girl? Hollywood. And I remember going to the door, and I'll be wanting to hug, like, mommy's here. Because, when she would be gone, my dad didn't know how to braid our hair and stuff. So we would go to school looking tattered. And the teachers probably like, let us guess, your mom is not here for a couple weeks. So, because I would tell them, I'll be like, my mom is not, she hasn't been home in a couple days, so my hair is not done. Because she'd be like, you can't wear that hat in class. And I would take the hat off, and she'd be like, put that hat back on. Because my hair was, you know what I mean? So, when she would come back, my mom had the avoidant attachment style. She didn't touch her kids. It was like, ew, get out of here, So that made me become avoidant attaching. I had the avoidant attachment style. She would walk through the door, and I'd be like, mom's here. Like this exhilarating feeling, like my world is going to go back to normal. And then when I would see her, she's like, just like all about her. And I would get rage. And I would start to come to her, and then I'll stop, like, you left us. You didn't even care if we had food. You're evil. In my mind. This is in my mind as a kid. So all these feelings I remember, like just clear as day. Clear as day. So as I started learning psychology, I realized it caused an emotional disturbance within me, because I didn't get that secure attachment from my mom or my dad. So as I get older, in my preteens and teens, the violence in the house started. Extreme violence. Seeing my father almost kill my mom because she was cheating, it did something to me. I didn't want to get my father put away for 25 years to life, but I had to testify against him. So I did all of that for my mom, just for her to let this man try to molest me, just for her to call me a bitch and a hoe and a bum. All these years, I epitomized my mother. I loved that woman with every being of my soul. So as I got older, I was like, what type of parent would do these things to their kids? So that's why, even though I had these emotional issues, I never wanted my kids to feel like that. So I was obsessed with my kids too much that I became overbearing. I became overprotective. My teenage daughter, she was not allowed to like really go outside a whole lot. You know, I thought I was protecting her. I did. And she was like, I can't stand you. She was like, you'll never let me do nothing. But she didn't realize it was because I never got anything from my mom and dad. So I just thought I was doing the right thing. You know what I mean? But all these things I started to learn when I think when she became like maybe 18, 19, it started to hit me slowly. I started watching shows like Ivana Saved My Life. I went to therapy. I act like it was a couple times where I almost had suicide ideations. This is probably like in my late 20s. After I had my son, I had extreme postpartum depression, like literally wanting to just jump in a lake with me and him and just unalive the both of us. Like it was that bad. I didn't know I was getting what's called postpartum psychosis. I breastfed him for 2 years, and when he would breastfeed, I would like be so mad that he's pulling the life out of me. All these angry thoughts. Why? This is why he's breastfeeding, and I'm like, God, please help me. I don't know what's coming over me. But I never thought to go get help at that time. But as I had to just like go through it. But it was one night I was pregnant with my last child, and I literally wanted to just take myself out. She was in my belly. I was having a moment of that same feeling from postpartum, and I had a baby right after that. Never got cured, never got fit. You know what I mean? And I remember back then we had payphones, and I was living in Philly with my husband at the time, ex-husband. I walked to the payphone and I called my sister in the one that was in the military, and I was like, I can't do this no more. I'm about to just end it all. And she was like, what is going on? I was like, we're not getting along. I feel drained. I don't want to be a mom anymore. Like it was terrible. It was like Satan himself came over me. Like it's not worth it. So my sister actually saved me. She talked me. She's like, just try to go get some therapy or something. So when I went to the doctor and they was doing an assessment, the first thing they want to ask me, do you have suicide thoughts? I was like, no. You're not finna come take my motherfucking kids. So this is another thing that the system sets up where you can't be totally truthful because they're going to consider you unfit. So I was like, no, but I told him every other symptom I was having. So he was like, yeah, it seems like you're going through a little bit of psychosis and it looks like you need counseling. So I signed up for counseling. What really helped me get over that stage is when I got pregnant, I had all these goals for my life. I was going back to school and stuff. And then when I got pregnant, I was happy and sad. And then when I got pregnant again, I was like, oh my God, my life is over. Because I was taking birth control, but I must have like missed a couple of days or whatever. But I was very fertile back then. So when he was like, he would talk down to me, my ex-husband. He would talk down to me because he felt like women was beneath men. This is when he was younger. He's not like that no more. But when he was younger, he would say mean things about women being beneath men and stuff. And that used to tear my self-esteem up because I knew how intelligent I was and I had all these goals. And I used to look at my life and be like, your dumbass married a fucking chauvinist. Look at your life. He don't even respect you, bitch. What's wrong with you? This was a torment for years when I was in my marriage. The first 2 years was great, but then it just went downhill. So I was like, how do I escape this? Because I'm not really a drug addict. I'm not gonna be no crackhead running around sucking dick for crack. I'm not doing that. I'm not going out like that. So I was like, what can I do? So I was like, maybe I should just jump out this window. But I was like, what if it doesn't, what if it doesn't work out? So sometimes the reason why people don't fully go through the attempt is because they don't know if it's gonna fully work. So all these things used to go through my mind when stress hit. And after my third child, I was like, I ain't never having kids again. The way my mental and my body is worked, I cannot. I'm a great grandma, but putting my body in that hormone stuff when I'm already high risk for depression and all that other stuff, going through the physical changes of hormones, nope, no ma'am. I know I'm 50, but I'm saying when I was younger, I knew that third child would have been my mental demise. So that's why I decided to go into some type of civil service work. So I wanted to become a lawyer because I used to see all these kids get abandoned and the way the Black community was suffering. And I was like, I want to be a lawyer and be an advocate for Black people. But then I started changing my mind on that. And then when my sister passed away, the one that had, drug overdose, she came into my dream like the week that she passed. And she confirmed to me, because at that time I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. She was like, you need to go into the mental health field. This was in 2011. And then I woke up and I said, I know what I want to go to school for. I remember I told my daughter that. So in 2013, I went back to college for healthcare management, and that's what I did. So all these revelations made me the woman who I am today, where I can understand where I came from and where I'm now, what brought me to this stage. So that's why I don't look down on people, because I understand mental trauma has not been talked about enough in the Black community. It's a silent killer for us. And when I started opening up, 2 years ago on YouTube, I got clowned. And that was an epitome of what I say about the Black community. We don't embrace and understand each other's trauma and help each other through it. So it becomes this stigma where we have to hide and suffer in silence. So I said, I'm not finna be that bitch to conform to other people's dumbass standards. I'm going to be on the front line, and I'm going to let y'all know it's okay to understand mental illness. It's okay to talk about your trauma. It's okay to bring up your childhood. It's okay to let your parents know, I don't like what you did to me. It's okay. You're not abusing your parents. You're basically letting them know, we need to have a come to Jesus moment, ma'am, sir. Because when I see you in the afterlife, God is going to ask me to tell me what happened to you that turned you this way. I'm going to point at your ass. Because on the day of judgment, the people that can intercede for the parents is the children. This is why your children is always judging you. Because they're trying to make you a better person. But we think we too good for judgment. When I started watching Ayana save my life, she understood the assignment. People want to come down on her. Oh, this Black mammy always want to, cape for the Black man. And I'm like, how? How is she caping for the Black man when the mother is the God to the child? She's absolutely correct. The mental anguish that these women will do to a boy child and a girl child, because she is the main person that has life and death of that child's whole being in her hands. That's the power of the mother. So when I would watch Ayana and she would make these mothers come and face this damaged child and said, give this child a hug. And I would watch these mothers look at their children in disgust, as if the child is supposed to kiss her ass. The fucking pride and the audacity to not humble yourself when you see that your own child is in pain. I cannot. I don't care how much BPD that's in me. I'm not doing that to my kids. I'm not. If I saw my daughter cry, I'm falling apart. Like, oh my God, please, please. I didn't mean it. You know what I mean? Like, I would see these young boys between 17 and 30 boo-hooing on Ayana. Don't even care that the whole world saw them. Boo-hoo. And some of these mothers will come in there and be like, I don't know what he crying for. I never understood that. So yes, I used to be like, get her, Ayana, get her ass. You know what I mean? And she will break these women. Oh, so we're going to sit here and act like you don't want to take accountability? All right, come on here, come on. She'll grab their hand and be like, come with me. We're going to have a conversation. And then there was this one show where she put this mother and daughter, and this mother humbled herself right away and started boohoo crying. And the daughter was the mean one and would not forgive her right away. And it reminded me of me and my daughter. But Ayana fixed it where she said, your child doesn't have to forgive you, but it's still your duty to get it right. It's still your duty to let them know how you feel, what you could have done better. Because she may not be ready to heal today, but eventually, if she is ready to heal, she'll remember this conversation. And it made sense to me. And I remember texting my daughter, and I was like, I want to have a conversation with you. And we started to mend our relationship. I started humbling myself and telling her that, I know I wasn't the best mom. I could have been better to you. I love you. I'm sorry. It may not heal your pain overnight, but that's what made us come back together. That's why we're pretty close now. But I could have been one of those moms that just act like it's all about me and my husband and I don't give two shits. I'm not doing that. Like how that lady, I'm not going to judge her, but I feel like Monique, she has a strained relationship with her son. And the dude that she's married to, he's the spokesman for how the son should be acting. And it's like, Monique, you need to let your husband, stay out of it and go meet with your son and y'all try to figure things out. And I'm not saying he's right for being rude or whatever he does, but I feel like y'all still need to come together. Maybe call Ayana and be like, you need to help us. Because we do have to answer for this stuff that we do to our children on the day of judgment. Not everybody believes in the day of judgment. I'm just saying. Karma could possibly be considered the same thing as the day of judgment. You might feel your karma before you leave this earth. God might make it in you where that same kid needs to provide you with an extra liver and he tells you to go fuck yourself, bitch, because you was an awful mother. I can care less if you drop dead. That's a horrible thing to go in the grave with. I'm just saying. So, yeah, man. Part of doing the work is understanding you have to come to grips face to face with the people you hurt. That's part of the healing process. I tried to come talk to my mom. She's still like, fuck you. You people think I'm a bad mom? You was bad children. I wasn't the bad mom. You's bad children. Y'all don't listen. That's the apology we get? So you can't change people like that. She had her opportunity. That's going to be between her and God. Because I know in the afterlife, I'm telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth, honey. I'm telling about all the predators you brought around the kids, all the pedophiles you brought around the kids. I'm telling it all, ma'am. All of it. You want to point the finger at dad? You was worse. You was way 10 times worse than him. At least we could blame crack on him. What was your excuse, ma'am? For the ungodly things you did to your children. What was the excuse? I can't. I've forgiven her as far as me not holding a grudge and moving on with my life. But she continues to do it to other children now in her old age. So it's a permanent thing. Now I really believe narcissism is a permanent illness. Before I was like, when I first heard about narcissism, I was like, oh, they just probably need therapy. And I realized, nope, it's an imprint in their DNA. Everything and how they process things, especially if they're high on the spectrum. So it is what it is. But these are also things that we need to talk about when we're talking about people in relationships. We can't just talk about, oh, it's a communication barrier. We have to know why. Why is this man not communicating with you? Why is this woman always screaming to the top of her lungs to express herself? We need to know why. We need answers. If you have no control over your emotions, something is wrong with you. We need to figure out what, ma'am, sir. If you don't show any emotions, we need to figure out why. And we're not just going to chalk it up to you being shy or da 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 da. I'm just sick of these like watered down relationship gurus that don't really get to the source of what are you dealing with when you get with a person and they have a strong manipulative mind game and they mind fuck people. What do you do? Because if you're getting mind fucked, you don't know until it's too late and you're all the way down that rabbit hole in a state of psychosis because you didn't realize you just got hypnotized and brainwashed. What are the signs to look out for, sir, ma'am, guru? That's what you need to be telling people also when they get into relationships. What are the signs you need to look for when you're dealing with emotionally unstable people? You don't know right away. They're going to give you their best foot forward. Are there signs that they're going to show in the first couple of stages? I say one of the signs is clinginess. But these people get so gassed up. Oh, this person loves me. They call me 5 times a day. Yeah, but what happens when you don't call them? I remember that gay butch girl, the one that cursed me out 3 weeks ago, right? Me and her was just cool. We wasn't, I don't go that way. But we was just cool. But I remember because I didn't text her right away, oh, the whole hell opened up on my ass the way she cursed me out. This is what I'm saying. People have mental illness. And they would laugh and be like, oh, she just crazy. It's not funny. These people are mentally unstable. So this is what we need to be looking for and paying attention to. I'm not trying to scare you from dating. There are people that are equipped, but are they doing the work? Are they in therapy? How bad is it? Have you tried to unalive a person in the past? Like, these are the questions you need to be asking on dates too. Have you laid hands on people? You may not have laid hands on your ex-wife, but did you try to hit your mom? Like, they'll go over the fact and be like, well, you didn't specifically ask. You just said that I hit my ex-girlfriend. I didn't hit that one. I hit the one before that one. You're like, you're a pathological liar. So these are things that I will be addressing the more and more I learn psychology, because I'm at the stage in my classes on behavioral, not the assessment portion. We haven't gotten there yet. We're at the stage of understanding behaviors. We haven't gotten to the stage of assessing behaviors. Does that make sense? When you assess the behavior, like, since I already know about BPD and narcissism way before I even started psychology classes, we had a brief introduction of it in one of my classes, but we haven't gotten to that stage of diagnosis, where it's like we get into the extreme tables, like the DSM-5. We did a brief introduction of the DSM-5, but it's not to the point where, tell me this thing broke. It's not to the point where it's telling you like, okay, so for my next class is going to be pharmacology, where we talk about the drugs that suits each disease, each mental illness. We haven't even gotten to that part yet. So I'm still learning a whole lot with the amount of classes that I have gotten to. I'm halfway through, but the intense classes is going to be the second half, which is going to be the early part of next year. So as I learn more about certain things, I will be able to get more in depth with certain stuff. I don't want to get in depth with just my opinions and then I give y'all the wrong information. I don't want that to be like, well, you said that that's what that meant and da 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 da. That's why I come to y'all more so as like a personal story. Once I learn all that I need to know, I won't be so personal with it. I'll more come to you with not tutorial, but like not tutorial. What word am I looking for? When you watch those, like a guide. I'll be more like a guide once I get to that level of finishing my classes. So, yeah. But it was nice talking to y'all. Ooh, I didn't realize I talked that long. Ooh, child. I need to start shortening my videos. This is why I probably wouldn't be that good at TikTok yet, because I don't know how to make short skits yet. I'm just not that. Yeah, I have to learn how to do that to reach the young people, but I'm not that good yet. But anyways, sorry that I took so long. Some of my subscribers appreciate my long-winded shit, but I have to learn to be versatile. But love y'all. Have a great night. I'll tell y'all how everything go tomorrow. Wish me luck. I gotta do a road test. I'm a little nervous. I haven't been behind the wheel in a while, so you know my anxiety is gonna kick in. But yeah, wish me luck. Love y'all. Bye.